السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أسعد الله مساءكم بكل خير. Hello everyone and a great afternoon to you all and welcome to NTI series of webinars. Today's webinar is on emergency response. My name is Firas, live from Muscat, the capital of our beautiful Oman, and I'm the moderator for today's session. I'd like to introduce today's speaker, Mr. Steve Sheppard, and our Zoom master, Latifa. For your information, a recorded version of this webinar will be available on our YouTube channel, which you can watch again later if you missed anything. We'd love to hear from you. So if you have any questions, there'll be a question and answer session at the end of this webinar. Don't forget to follow us, like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And please give us your feedback either by commenting here or sending us an email to info@ntioman.com. Those who stay till the end of the webinar and complete the poll will receive a certificate of attendance. And please, for those who have not entered using the real names, please enter your real names so you get your certificate with your name. And not only this, after you finish filling the poll, I think Steve has a nice surprise for you at the end. So please don't go. If you haven't filled the registration form, then please send me your name and email address to info@ntioman.com. For those who just joined us, welcome to NTI series of webinar. And now over to you, Steve.
Well, thank you very much, Firas, and thank you everybody for coming to join us. Hopefully today I'll be able to share something with you and that you'll be able to take away that you might be able to use for potentially the rest of your life. So I'm Steve Sheppard. I'm going to be your host for just the next hour or so. And I'm just going to now share my screen with you so that you can see exactly what I need you to see. Okay, so hopefully you can see what I can see. So on behalf of NTI, welcome to NTI. And hopefully in this series of webinars, as I said before, you'll be able to take something away that you'll be able to use. So Firas has already introduced me, but this is me. My name's Steve Sheppard. I've been working now for NTI for the last very nearly 10 years. And I worked for another company before in a place called Soha, further up country, a company called Valley Pelletizing. And I also worked at a company called ISEM here in Muscat. And before that, I was in the United Kingdom Fire and Rescue Service. I worked for the London Fire Brigade. To you guys that are here, probably means civil defence. But I also worked at the Fire Service College, and as you see, there's FSC UK, and that's the Fire Service College in the UK for the United Kingdom Fire and Rescue Services. So I've actually been a trainer for a long time, and obviously, being a trainer for a long time, you kind of tend to pick up quite a lot of knowledge, and hopefully, I'll be able to share some of that with you today so that you can enjoy, hopefully, the same things that we can today. Do we need emergency response? No? Okay, well, I'll tell you, you do need it, and I'll tell you why. Do you ever have one of these? If I know everybody in this country, the answer to that is going to be yes, at least one, if not more. Perhaps you have one of these. Yeah, a laptop or a computer. What about one of these? Does anyone do cooking? I think most people do. Yeah. Do you have one of these? Again, we all live in them. If they don't look like this, then they look like a block of flats. One way or the other, we tend to have somewhere to live, don't we? Yeah. Perhaps you have one of these or more. Yeah. And for sure, some of you definitely have these. And if the answer to that is, yes, I do have one of those, or more one of those in any combination, then really you do need to be able to be ready to respond to an emergency. Yeah? Most of the things that we use potentially can cause us problems in terms of some of the things that can go wrong. So one of the things that we find that people benefit from is a little knowledge of the disaster cycle. The disaster cycle was made by an organization called FEMA back in the 1970s. And basically it was a little think tank project that says, how can we get the best out of the things that we plan for in terms of emergencies? And these are, at the time, were for natural emergencies like hurricanes, etc. So it starts off with mitigation. Mitigation is about making ensure that we either prevent things from happening, or if they are going to happen, we need to make sure that we can reduce the impact of them, which is why we say, think what if. Yeah, what if this thing did that, or what if that thing did this? And that's when we hope for the best, yes, but we plan for the worst. And in order to do that, we have to be able to identify the things that can potentially go wrong. And then once we've done that, we clearly need to be prepared. And one of the ways that we can be prepared is to make sure we've got contingency plans. Contingency plans is about saying that now we can be ready. We need to be ready. And the reason that we need to be ready is because plan A has stopped working. If we haven't got plan A, then we need a plan B. Yeah. And because we've now identified things that can go wrong and we've made our plans, we need to make sure we've got the necessary equipment in place to be able to make it work. And clearly we need to check. We need to check it and see if it works. So we do little exercises that make sure that we know what we're supposed to be doing. And then, of course, at some we need to be able to respond. And once we respond, this is about going, we know what we're supposed to do, so let's not panic about it and let's execute the plan that we've got in place. And then, of course, we've got recovery. Recovery is about getting back to a safe condition. So once we've made it safe, we need to learn from the lessons that we've just put in place, the things that have happened to us. And then, of course, we can perhaps look at making things better in the future. So that's a quick rundown of the disaster cycle. And if all of what you take from here is those 4 things that allow you to think, what if, be prepared, execute a plan and make safe, then I'll be a happy, happy person. So let's talk about vehicles for a minute. First rule of the road is to expect the unexpected, because things sometimes happen that you aren't responsible for. And the second rule really is, if it does happen, be prepared for it. Yeah, because one way or the other, things do go wrong. Yeah. Would you know what to do if your vehicle was in an accident? Not many people do. Yeah, everyone assumes that everyone's going to be okay, etc. But sometimes that isn't the case. So let me tell you, if you do have a vehicle accident, make sure you can get out of the vehicle and make sure you can get to the side of the road. Get away from your vehicle, because if you've hit something or something has hit you, it's quite conceivable that something else could come along and hit you both. What about a vehicle breakdown? Would you know what to do? So here you can see it, they were in the middle of nowhere. If it was on the Salt and Caboose Highway or the expressway, would you know what to do? I would hope the answer to that would be yes. Yeah. Because one way or the next, we should be preparing for those things, because it's very common that vehicles break down. So when was the last time you checked your car? Have you checked your tyres recently? Has anyone looked at the spare? Does the spare actually work? Is it pumped up? Is your fire extinguisher in the car? Is it full up? Does it work? Do you know how the jack works in case you needed it? So there's lots of things that we need to consider in terms of vehicle emergencies. But don't forget, don't sit in the car. Get out the car, get you, yourself, and your family into a safe place if it's at all possible. We've said already about making sure that we expect the unexpected. So let me just show you a short video to see and explain exactly why. You'll notice here that sometimes things happen not because of you, but because somebody else isn't paying the same of attention perhaps as you are. Yeah. So in this particular instance, be prepared. Expect things to happen to you. That way they won't come as a big surprise. Yeah. Emergencies at home. We all have emergencies at home, except they're not always big emergencies. You know, sometimes we have things like power failure, we have pipes blocked or pipes broken. We sometimes get locked out of our home. These aren't really emergencies. They seem to be at the time, but they're not big things. Very often, this can be easily fixed with a telephone call, perhaps. Yeah, maybe a few questions that are very easily answered, if not by you, then by somebody else. When we have emergencies at home, maybe like this, a fire emergency, well, that's something a little bit different. Yeah. When we talk about fire, we need to understand what fire is and just how bad it can be. When we have a fire and we get a fire develop in our home, it's very likely that it would develop very, very quickly. Yeah, it would develop very quickly. And you can see there, in the first little while, fires can become very, very big. Similarly, fires are actually very, very dangerous, not just because of the fire, but because of the products of combustion, the smoke and the fire gases. Yeah, there are far more people who lose their lives because of fire gases than there are because of the flames. So now you can see in my little video, 17 seconds after ignition, we're starting to get to the stage where the fire is becoming increasingly developed. 1 minute in, we're now getting to the stage where the fire is spreading around the room because it's very, very hot. Ceiling level temperatures in a compartment like this may reach as much as 1,000 degrees. Waist level temperatures as much as 600 or 700. So after 5 minutes, the room is completely destroyed or very close to being completely destroyed. And you saw that as the smoke started to develop, one of the things that rapidly deteriorated was your ability to be able to see. Remember, fire burns, it develops very quickly. Fire is deadly, it produces a lot of toxic smoke. And that toxic smoke is the thing that's likely to do the killing. Yeah, it's likely to cause you more damage than the actual, cause you personally, as a health hazard, far more damage than the fire. The fire is hot, which is why it spreads, and usually it spreads upwards. Ceiling level temperatures can easily reach 1,000 degrees, and all of that smoke that's developing in the compartment is going to reduce your visibility. It's going to be very difficult for you to see. So, in terms of fires, what do you think are the most common causes of fires at home? I'll open that question. There's one if anyone's got any views on that. What do you think are the most common causes of fires at home?
Some people said cooking, that's Hanan. Hilal said kitchen. Asim said electrical. Rajesh said short circuit. Ayman said power. Asim said the kids.
And you'd be right on all of those. Believe it or not, some of your comments are really, really outstanding. And they are absolutely accurate. Okay, so the most common causes of fires at home, over 40% of the fires that occur in domestic premises are because of cooking. Yeah, you know, like when you come home sometimes from work and you're feeling particularly tired and you put on the cooker and maybe you put on your dinner and then you sort of sit down for a few minutes and then you fall asleep. That's still cooking and that's still producing a lot of heat. Some of you said the children. Yeah, your children, they don't know what you know. The children are quite fearless and they are absolutely fascinated by fire. Yeah, so things like matches and lighters and candles and things like that. That's what they like to play with because it's exciting. Yeah. And similarly, candles, things like candles and oud and other things that we use to burn incense and things like that. Yeah, those too cause problems for us because very often we'll leave them alight when we go to bed. Don't think about blowing them out. And of course, electrical appliances. You already identified electrical appliances. In your home, do you use electrical appliances? Do you use things like extension leads? Do you use things like expander plugs or power bars? I would suspect the answer to that is yes. And that is the number 3 cause of all fires in the home. Because we overload them, we try to take more power out of them than they're capable of giving, and they catch fire because they overheat. Yeah. And of course, cigarettes and candles. But one of the things I'd like for you to consider is holiday decoration, especially at this time of the year. Yeah, at this time of the year for people like me, it's Christmas. But maybe for some of the others of you, it's earlier in the year. For example, the National Day holidays. When we talk about holiday decorations are things like Christmas trees, flags, lights, and all those kind of things. Believe me, At certain times of the year, like at Eid, National Day, Christmas, Diwali, Independence Day, depending upon where you are, all of these things can cause problems for us in terms of how it allows fires to develop in our home. I'm going to show you another short video now, and this shows you how quickly fire can develop from just one single Christmas tree. You looked at the previous video and it took maybe 2, maybe 3 minutes before the room was fully engulfed in fire. Well, I'm going to show you this video, and it's not sped up, not at all, not under circumstances. And I just would like you to see how quickly things get bad. So you'll see in a very few seconds that a tiny little fire will appear at the bottom of the Christmas tree. As you see there, suddenly our Christmas tree, within 10 seconds, it's going to make being in this room virtually impossible. In terms of 25 seconds, survivability in this room is likely to be 0 for most people. Yeah. Within 45 seconds of being in this room, nobody will have survived. Yeah. 45 seconds. Marsalam. Yeah. So be aware at certain times of the year, we do things in our home that really they are quite dangerous. And it's something that we should perhaps prepare for, because things very often go wrong during holiday times. Yeah. So what can we do to stop this from happening? Well, first of all, best things for fires is to stop them from starting in the first place. So if we can do that, then the fire won't develop and we won't have to worry about it. So things like unplug unnecessary electrical appliances. Don't leave your phone charger charging. Don't leave it plugged in and on all the time. Things like your laptop battery, same way. Don't leave it plugged in or turned on. If it doesn't need to be plugged in, or if it needs to be plugged in, turn it off if it's not necessary. Combustible materials, things that burn, keep them away from ignition sources. Make sure sources of heat, like fires, heaters, and things like that. Same as electrical cable, those kind of things. Keep them away from things that will burn, because at some point, if they start to get hot, then that's how fires can develop very, very quickly. Yeah. When you're at home in your bed, shut your bedroom door. Stop the smoke. If there is ever going to be any, stop the smoke from coming into your room. Gives you a much greater chance of survivability. In terms of mitigation, fit smoke alarms in your home. They're not very expensive nowadays. You can buy them probably for about 6, maybe 7 reals. Put one at the bottom of the stairs, one at the top of the stairs, one in your bedroom. Yeah, these are really, really good, and they give you a really early warning that things are going wrong in your home. Yeah, that smoke is present in your home, and it will actually wake you up. It gives quite a loud noise. Make sure you've got a fire extinguisher, and if you can't afford a fire extinguisher, buy a fire blanket. A fire blanket is probably one of the most useful things that you can have at home, because you can use it for quite a lot of things. Yeah, it doesn't just put out fires on your cooker or in cooking pans. Remember not to leave your cooking unattended. If you're in the kitchen cooking, stay in the kitchen cooking. If you feel that you can feel tired and you want to leave, then turn the cooking off. Make sure if you've got gas cylinders, check them periodically for leaks. See if there's any broken pipes. See if there's anything out there that's allowing the smell comes from the gas to be in your home. Yeah. And remember that if you have got a gas leak, don't go turning on the lights. It's quite possible that it could cause an explosion. And then, of course, we need to be ready. Yeah, sometimes when we do find we're going to have an event, we don't want them, clearly, but we do need to be ready for them. So one of the things that we suggest that you do is to create or practice a fire escape plan. A fire escape plan is your home contingency plan that says, if I have a fire, these are the things that I'm going to do, yeah? Because if you don't have to think and you only have to react, that's a good thing, especially if other people are part and parcel of that same practice. If you can get your children, your husband, your wife, your family, everybody signed up to, then what we need to consider is how quickly we can get things moving. So one of the things we want you to do is find 2 ways out of the room. Don't just rely on the door. Door might not work. Practice getting out of the home at certain times of the day, maybe when it's late in the afternoon or early in the evening. Make sure you've got someone to go outside, your assembly point. But more importantly, teach your children not to hide from firefighters. Children know what you know, and they don't know that those guys are coming to help them. And sometimes people lose their lives. Young children lose their lives because they hide from the firefighters and they think that they're intruders. So teach your children not to hide from them. If you're in a smoke-filled room, get low. Yeah, the smoke is going to be at the top of the room. Poisonous gases are going to be at the top of the room. The heat is going to be at the top of the room. Get low down to the floor to find the door. Open the door cautiously. Feel the door. See if it's hot. If it's hot, don't open it. Yeah, and if you do have to open it slowly, because it's like, oh, possibly there could be smoke on the outside. And if you can't get out, then make sure the doors that you've got, knock them off. Use some bedding or some clothes around the door to stop the smoke from coming through. If you're outside and other people are inside, call 9999. Make sure you call the fire department. Make sure you tell them where the person's located. The same thing with your pets if you can't get your pets in. If your clothes should catch fire and you're in your kitchen, etc., we recommend that you do this. Stop, don't panic. If you start to panic, you start to run around, then all of that heat and smoke is going to go up in your face. Get down on the floor. Get down on the floor as quickly as you can. Cover your face with your hands and then roll over to squash the fire out. Make sure that you try to get as much as the fire put out as you can. It's great fun to play with your kids and it gets them prepared. Think about what your children do. Again, your children don't know what you do. So this is a little tip for you to be able to teach them. Here we are. So, something that you can share with your children or share with your family. Think about what clothes you wear. Yeah, many of us wear clothes that are like acrylic base or nylon and those kind of things. And those are really highly flammable. And if that's going to be the clothes that you wear when you're in the kitchen, then perhaps this is a good thing for you to learn. If you've got a fire extinguisher indoors, then it's quite possible that you might not even have to use it. Yeah, there are lots of different types of fire extinguishers. Most people know about water and foam, yeah, but they're not the two that you're likely to have in your home. In your home, if it's something that you bought or something that's been bought for you by your landlord, then it's likely to be either dry powder, and that's certainly going to be the one that's in your car, or it might even be a CO2 extinguisher or a carbon dioxide extinguisher. Both of these are for use against multiple things, but more importantly, you can use them on electrical fires involving electricity. Yeah, it's because both are non-conductors. So they're very, very useful things to have in your home. And of course, once you've got a fire extinguisher, then you should know how to use it. Yeah, using a fire extinguisher is as simple as PASS, pass. Pull the pin, aim the fire extinguisher at the base of the fire, squeeze the handle, activate the fire extinguisher, and then sweep from side to side. And I'll this, how many people do you think know what they're doing? Even something as simple as using a fire extinguisher. Got another short video for you that might give you a bit of an awakening.
Trying to put out a house fire, and she's losing. Lucky for her, this isn't her home.
Heart pounding a little bit.
We told a group of homeowners we were doing a story about family fire drills, but it was a trick. Really, we wanted to see if they could work a fire extinguisher.
And there's a fire now. Here, take the fire extinguisher. Go, go, go. See what you can do.
Firefighters say many homeowners have fire extinguishers, but most don't know how to use them.
Put it out.
Remember Carrie Braun? Look, it takes her an agonizing 10 seconds to pull the pin on hers.
I always thought it would be easy to use, and it's not as easy as you think.
Vincenetta Nello has a fire extinguisher at home, but was too far away from the flames for this one to do any good. So what did you learn?
To just get out. Get out.
The fire doubles every 60 seconds, so the longer it's delayed, the worse the fire is going to be.
Enrique Reyes got his extinguisher working, but then, right here, took his eyes off of the fire, a big no-no, as his wife Millie struggled with hers.
I thought it was kind of stressful, thinking of what is she doing, what am I supposed to do?
Ideally, one person should call 911 while the other mans the fire extinguisher. To use a fire extinguisher correctly, remember the acronym PASS.
All right, I'm going to try out the pass method right now. Here I go. I'm pulling the pin, aiming, squeezing the trigger, sweeping side to side, and sure enough, success.
But the best fire extinguisher technique you can learn is when not to use one. If the fire is past the very beginning stages and getting bigger, you should get out while you can. Elizabeth Leamy, ABC News, Mahwah, New Jersey.
So the thing to take from that, if the fire's too big for you, get out. Call the fire brigade. Stay outside until it's safe and never compromise your own personal safety. One of the things that we talk about is a fire blanket. And now I've got another short video that says how to do it.
Fire. This time, in a small container such as a domestic chip pan. A fire blanket works in the same way as a foam spray, by starving the fire of oxygen.
The way to hold a fire blanket, grab plenty of material in each corner. Imagine that you're riding a bicycle. There's your handlebars there. Stick your thumbs out and then turn your hands in so your hands are well and truly protected from the fire, okay? Plenty of distance between you and the blanket. You just walk forward. When it touches, straight over. So if you want to come around here, okay, so make sure that's right under, great. Okay, so just straight forward, keep going, keep going, keep going, excellent. Make sure the blanket is right over the pan. Good. Now switch it off, well done, well anticipated. Switch it off either from there or the mains. We'll leave that now until the fire brigade takes it.
Fire blankets are not designed for repeated use, and once used, should be discarded and
the word that's missing off the end is replaced. Yeah, fire blankets are really, really good at home because they're not just for pans. Anything that can fit under the fire blanket is likely to be able to be put out with the fire blanket. So that's a good thing to have, and they're not very expensive, and they don't need testing. They just need checking to make sure that people haven't used them. So in terms of recovery, get out. Get the fire brigade out and stay outside until it's safe to go back. Yeah, the civil defence, the fire brigade people, they'll tell you when it's safe to go back inside. You don't want to go back before. But what you should remember is that everything apart from your family and friends is replaceable. They're not. Get them outside. Get safe. What about children? We talked about children a little bit. We know that they don't always do what they're supposed to do. So what kind of emergencies do you think we get with children? It might surprise you, but the most common childhood emergencies are things like burns in schools, burns from touching hot objects or hot things, and from liquids, hot liquids, etc. Children fall over all the time, so things like fractures, sprains and other broken bones, cuts and scratches, bruises. Sometimes children, we call it poisoning. Okay, but they expose themselves to chemicals. Remember that children don't see what you see. When you've got your Mr. Muscle in itching, to you, it looks like kitchen cleaner, or I don't know, whatever other things that we have that are orange and blue and green. Children might not necessarily see that because they can't read the label. Children get things stuck in various parts of their body, like their ears, nose, and their throat. Yeah, children tend to put everything that they can, especially young children, everything that you give them will appear and disappear down there in them. Keys, remote control for the television, doesn't matter what it is. So, would you know what to do if this was one of your children? Yeah. Would you know what to do if your children had been burned or exposed to electricity or broken bones? So we suggest to you, you should go, what if? If my child was to get a broken bone, if my child was to have this thing, yeah, children have mishaps all the time. They are not as adept as you. They're not as graceful as you, especially when they're youngsters and toddlers. So they will always have mishaps. And one of the things that we say to you, the best thing that you can do to be prepared is to make sure that you have a basic understanding of first aid. Okay? And then once you've got a basic understanding of first aid, the best thing that you can do is to take a first aid class so that the equipment that you've got, you can actually know how to use. And most pediatric experts, like young children's experts, will give you advice. They say that all parents should take infant and child CPR classes. Having an idea about what to do is a good thing. It helps you to be able to plan. Yeah. So be prepared, get a first aid kit. Oh, that reminds me. We've got an offer for you that will be brought up to you shortly in terms of training for first aid that hopefully some of you might be able to make use of at the end. So our first aid kit, this is a great first aid kit. Yeah, might likely cost you something in the region of about 25, maybe 30 reals, but you might not need one like this. Yeah, this is a very comprehensive one. But get a first aid kit. You can always add to it. Yeah. Take a first aid training course. Know how to use the equipment that you've got. It will give you skills, life skills that you will be able to use. You'll never forget them. You might need to practice them occasionally. Yeah, things like choking, children choking. Things like CPR for babies and children. Yeah, maybe children that suffer from asthma or seizures, epilepsy, diabetic emergencies, and those things. It allows you to be able to make contingency plans, having an idea about what you should do and how you should do it. So, short video for you now.
First aid for a child who's choking.
A choking
Can you go do your
child.
homework, please, Nadia?
But Mum, I don't want.
That symbol that you saw there, that child with her hands across her throat, that's telling you that she's got a problem. People that are choking can't speak, so they can't communicate. They can't breathe, so they're going to be panicking. And they can't cough, because if they could, then it's likely that they would be able to dislodge whatever is in their throat. So if you see somebody doing that symbol across their throat, it's probably telling you that they are choking and they can't speak.
What's wrong? Are you choking? Cough it up. Come on.
Give up to 5 back blows.
Come on.
Hit them firmly between the shoulder blades. Give up to 5 abdominal thrusts. Pull inwards and upwards. If the object does not dislodge, call 999.
Obviously, in this case, it's double nine. Yeah. Want to look at flooding emergencies now? Do we have flooding in this country? Because the short answer to that is yes, of course we do. We had Cyclone Shaheen land here just a few weeks ago. Yeah? And some of the things that you see here are clearly all part and parcel of that. So, is this something that you can be ready for? Because the short answer is yes, it is. If you get any notification that there's going to be potential flooding, then what you can do is make some sandbags. Yeah, they're not expensive to buy and they're easy to make. Yeah, make some sandbags. Think about how many doorways you have and think about putting sandbags in front of them, one on top of the other, and overlap them so that there's as little space between as possible. Remember that the sand, when it gets wet, is going to swell up. Yeah, so make sandbags, put them in front of your door. Wrap them in plastic or put plastic behind them so that it minimizes the chance of water getting past them. Yeah. And make sure that they're one on top of the other. We say use a minimum of 6. But it could be you need 9 or 10 or 12. Yeah. Think about your furniture. If you've got expensive furniture or expensive electrical goods, don't leave them downstairs. Put them upstairs if it's at all possible. Make sure you know how to turn off things like electricity and water and gas so that the flood water can't do more damage by short circuits and contamination. And if you think that it's going to be for quite a while, make an emergency kit. Get enough food and water perhaps for 3 days. Yeah. And we go, well, 3 days is a long time. Yeah, the emergency might not last for 3 days, but the lack of electricity, the lack of water, maybe not being able to get to the supermarket, that might last a little bit longer. Yeah, so be prepared for it. So if we're under a flood warning, make sure you know where the shelter is. Make sure you know where to go. If you have to drive anywhere during a flood, don't drive through flood water. Yeah, 150 millimeters of water is more than enough to knock you off your feet. 300 millimeters of water is enough to knock your car off its wheels. Yeah. And then the next thing, you are being washed away down the wadi. Stay off of bridges over fast moving water very often. It can damage the bridge. And if you're told to evacuate, then think about doing so. And if you do get caught out, then go to higher ground or go to a higher floor in your house. Stay where you are. Take your telephone with you. Make sure you're in a position to be able to contact somebody if you need to. During the flood, if you're told to evacuate, evacuate. Go to where they tell you. It's important. Yeah. If you get sick, phone your healthcare provider. You may need medical attention and they can provide it for you. Listen to the radio or the television if it's possible. They will tell you what's going on, where the emergency information and what you need to do. Don't walk, swim or drive through floodwaters. Yeah, turn around, don't drown. Remember, it's easy to get washed away. Bridges over fast moving water can easily be disrupted or destroyed. If you're in your car, stay in your car. Yeah, especially if the water is moving very rapidly. And if the water starts to come in the car, get on the roof. And everyone goes, oh, I can't open the door. No, you don't have to open the door. You have to open the window. Yeah, your car shouldn't be moving that fast. Yeah? Sit on the roof. Let people see you. Call somebody on your phone. And if you're in a building, get to the highest level. Don't go out into a space that you can't get out of. Yeah, some of you not on the roof, you might find it's where you keep your tanks or your pumps, etc. Yeah, make sure you can get outside so you can be seen. Okay, and then after the flood, pay attention to what they tell you. Yeah, sometimes in terms of flood water, water gets contaminated. It gets contaminated by raw sewage, dead animals, sometimes dead persons. Yeah, and that's the kind of stuff that you don't want on your body. So if you have to do anything, make sure you wear PPE, wear gloves, wear coveralls, yeah, wear boots. Make sure that you cover your face appropriately, especially if there's mold or debris, okay? Because one way or the other, you don't want to be getting anything inside your lungs that shouldn't be there. Remember that people with asthma, okay, they certainly can be very easily affected by bad smells and mold, the spores that comes from moldy walls, etc. Remember that when you've left the house, other snakes and other animals may be in your house. Yeah, if the floodwaters are going to be that high, then they're likely that they're going to go somewhere that's going to be dry, or as dry as it can be. Remember that electrocution is always a risk. If it's wet, if you are in standing water, this is why we suggested it's a good thing for you to turn off the electricity in your home. Doesn't have to be throughout the home, just in maybe on the ground floor. Don't wade in floodwater. Floodwater, as we've already said, can be contaminated with some very, very unpleasant things, and it's better not to expose yourself to it if you don't need to. So, food for thought going forward. Flooding doesn't happen very often, but it can happen, and it's a good thing to be prepared for it. I'd like to just remind you all that Allah helps those people that help themselves. And that means you being prepared and you being able to respond. Inshallah is okay, but it's better to help as much as you can. And on a parting thought, okay, I'd like to say to you that life generally is much more precious than we know. But similarly, it's a lot more fragile than we think. Yeah? It's very, very easy to have it compromised. So that about sums up my presentation. Hopefully you will have learned something or made you more aware. And I'd like to now say to you, does anyone have any questions that I can answer for you before we close? I think my hosts are preparing everything. So if you give us just a second or two, we'll be in a position to take your questions if you have any.
Yes, there's a question from Hilal. He's saying, did you face any emergency situation and you solved that correctly?
Well, actually, in a previous life, Hilal, I've had many emergencies I've had to face. Have they all been successful? Well, eventually the answer to that is yes, but not always at that time. Sometimes there have been some emergencies that have taken a lot longer to fix than others. Say in my previous life, because of the work I was involved in, then that wasn't at all uncommon. So yes, I have. And one of the things I can tell you, short story, is what people sometimes do, how they compromise their own safety. In 1985, there was a fire occurred in a place called Sidcup in the UK, in southeast London. And it was a house fire. And the people in the house fire did actually wake up and they got outside, went outside to their back garden. And when they were outside in their back garden, they couldn't get out of the back garden. They would have had to get over their neighbour's fences. It's a bit different in the UK. But the mum of the family, she went, oh my God, my handbag is in the kitchen. So she promptly went running into the kitchen to get her handbag. After about, 30 seconds, said, wifey, come back. Off Dad went, help with wifey. 19-year-old daughter went, my parents haven't come out of the house. The next thing we found was 3 people in a pile in the kitchen, all trying to help each other, all dead. So not always successfully is our emergency response, but it's worth remembering that everything that you own, except your family and your friends, is replaceable. I hope that answers your question.
Steve, I have 2 questions. Now it's 3 questions. One is from Amal. She's asking about 2 things. What can she do if there is a snake bite? And the second thing is, if there's a poisoning at home, what does she need to do?
Well, they're 2 very interesting questions. I'll deal with the snake bite first. If you do get bitten by a snake, okay, if you do get bitten by a snake, remember that this is going to be probably more frightened than you are. Yeah? So once the snake has bitten you, it's likely to go away. But one way or the other, get away from it. sit down on the floor, phone 999, try to relax. You don't want your body to be excited or too excited, too much under stress, because that will make the toxin that's in the snake bite, it will make it much more responsive. Call somebody, get somebody to come and help you, but sit quietly as much as you can, okay? Make sure that you talk to somebody on the phone, keep them on the phone until they arrive at your home. 999 is always a good call in terms of getting somebody to come and help you. In terms of accidental poisoning at home, your children, okay, and it's likely to be your children, especially if they're youngsters, okay, again, don't panic. Don't panic. Get your child to sit down. Don't make them sick. Don't give them lots of milk and those kind of things. No. Give them small sips of water. If you make them sick, whatever has gone inside them, if you make them vomit, whatever's gone inside them, if it's corrosive, if it's burning, then as well as burning the way in, it will also burn on the way out. So try and keep them calm, keep them sitting down, small sips of water, call 999. If that isn't good, if that's take too long to get to you, get somebody to drive. Keep them calm, keep them warm, keep talking to them, keep reassuring them, but don't make them sick, okay? And don't give them lots and lots and lots of water, because that may have a detrimental effect.
Okay, it seems that I forgot my mic on. Another question from Ahmed. He's asking, how can we make an emergency response plan? Can you give him a tip or two of how he can prepare or create a flow chart?
Okay, yeah. First of all, think about how many people are in your home. Okay, think about the ages of the people that are in your home. Think about where they're located in your home. So let's say you've got 2 brothers, 3 sisters, and they are aged between 5 and 25. Okay, a mum and dad perhaps, and maybe your grandmother or your grandfather or both. Yeah. So first of all, think, what the things are in my home that can cause a problem for me? What can cause fires to start? How effective can our response be? Then you need to go, those people, where are they located in house? And they need to think about how to get out from that location. Remember that your mum and dad, perhaps, or your wife, or your children, they're not be as strong as you are, and they're not be as knowledgeable as you are. So you need to make sure that your home action plan will actually focus on what they need, not just on what you need. Yeah. So think about several ways how you can get out of your house. And once you're out of your house, and that might be that you need to buy like a rope ladder that you can throw out the window or throw out of the roof. Yeah. And they're not expensive. They're really not. They're the 8, 10, 12 reals. Yeah. But again, fixed properly and ready for immediate deployment. Once you've made or started to make your action plan, tell everybody. Yeah, tell everybody about it and make sure they practice it. But try and make it fun. Make sure that they know where to go, where the assembly point is. Yeah, try it at different times of day. But more importantly, make it fun. That way it sticks in people's mind.
Steve, I have a couple of more questions, but I don't know if the time is enough. One question is from Mazen. How can you help somebody who's a diabetic and his sugar is low and high or high? Another question from Ahmed, how to handle multiple burned incident. Another question from Tariq talking about a choking person if he's unresponsive. I don't know if you can manage to answer all these questions before we end today's session.
Well, I'm not sure I can answer all of those questions because some of those questions do kind of like they're quite involved. especially with people with diabetic emergencies, because people with diabetic emergencies perhaps are the most difficult things to accomplish. So I can't really answer that question with the time that we've got available. But just think that people that have got diabetic emergencies, very often they will know that they're diabetic. And if they tell you that I'm diabetic and they then start to behave in a very difficult way, then it could very well be that you are going to be that person's lifeline. Yeah, that person's lifeline. So don't panic. 9999 is always a good call. Stay with them. Try to keep them alert if it's possible. They may start to have convulsions, and if that's the case, let them have their convulsions. You just make sure that they don't crash into anything. And when they start to come to or start to calm down, talk to them. Let them know what's happening. Let them know what's going on. In terms of multiple burns, my goodness me, you guys have got some really great ideas. Best thing I can say to you, all of you, okay, for answering these questions, I just don't think I'm trying not to answer them. But some of these things that you're asking will perhaps be better answered if you put yourselves on a first aid course. Yeah. And we said to you, some of you guys that are attending this course, we are prepared here in NTI to run first aid courses for you. I think for us is better prepared to make the finances of the offer, but we're more than happy to run those first aid courses for you. Different types of first aid courses, providing you sign up for them by the end of the year, then we can perhaps be able to offer you substantial discounts that you benefit from. So please don't think that I'm not answering your questions. It's just that my hour is already on, and I'm really, really sorry, but I think that one way or the other, they're telling me it's time to go. Sorry, guys. I hope I've answered what questions I can. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, I still have one question for you, Steve. This is from me, from Firas. But for the guys who have some more questions, please feel free to send your questions to info@ntioman.com. I will for sure pass it to Steve and send you the reply as soon as possible. For the people who wanted the presentation, in a week's time, you will find that our presentation is going to be live on our YouTube channel, so you can watch it again and share it with your friends and colleagues. My question is, if Latifa, you can share a picture I sent to you today. Yes, can you zoom a little bit, Latifa? Steve, I see a 56 fee stamp here.
You can indeed.
And I see a young man with a yellow helmet. Is that you?
Well, that young man with the yellow helmet is actually me, and that's my loosely held secret. I appeared along with the Queen on a 56 pence stamp. It was a commemorative stamp back in not 19 at all. In 2008, the pictures were taken in 2008, and the stamp was released in 2009. But that person that you see there is exactly a younger version of the old boy you see on the screen, as you've just seen on the screen. So yes, it is.
Okay, thank you, Steve. And to all, still I say, please don't go away. Thank you, Steve, for answering those questions. If you can mute your screen, Steve, thank you very much. And for everyone, please don't go away. It was a great webinar, and it was a pleasure to have you with us. Again, to all of you who attended this session, and also who have joined us late, like I said, you can always watch this recorded webinar on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow us, like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And again, like I said, if you have still some more questions, please send your questions to info@ntioman.com. So this really concludes the webinar for today. Thank you all for attending. We hope you have learned and enjoyed the webinar. And like Steve said, I'm going to give you some more details on the first aid course. But before I do so, just reminding the people who have entered the webinar with dummy names, if you can change your names to the real names so we can for sure make sure you get a certificate of attendance. Plus, for the offer that I'm going to talk about, the poll, after the poll, it also concerns you. So I'm going to ask my colleague now, Latifa, to share the poll with you. Please fill up the poll, and after that, I'll be back with you again for 1 more minute. Thank you. Okay, I'm sure you're still listening to me. Is my voice loud and clear, Steve? Okay, so as Steve said, it's good to have a first aid course which will help you in such cases as Steve mentioned, as an offer from NTI, and for all the people who have attended this webinar. First aid course is a 2-day course, and there are 2 types of courses. One is associated with a certificate from American Heart Association, and another one, it's a certificate that is by NTI. The course is for 95 riyals, but for everyone who is attending this webinar, or whoever attended this webinar with us, if you register by the end of this year, the course is for 65 riyals. And like I checked with the HSC department, just in case the classes are full, if you send me an email with your details for the registration, and you want it to be postponed in January or February, something like this, but please make sure you send me your details before the end of this year. As for the other course that is certified by NTI, it's also a 2-day first aid course. It's 80 riyals, and for the people or for the webinar attendees, it's for 55 Omani riyals. So thank you all for attending this webinar. Again, thank you, Steve. Thank you, Latifa. And thank you all, and have a great day. Thank you.